All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quanah Watts coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And there's a lot of things that are taking place, right, and have taken place, right, in 2025, right? This has been a very eventful year. Right, and we're coming into 2026, right? This year has moved so freaking fast, you blink twice, man, and we're already at the end of the year, and just as 2025 was a very eventful year, 2026 we believe through the spirit is going to be an even more eventful year, rightfully so, through the spirit and power, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, our beloved elder apostle Tahar, ultimately, as he's been doing, for years, for many years that I can remember, right, has ultimately been deeming, giving the year to come, right, a title in 2026, the title of 2026 was ultimately, the year of apostasy, sellouts, and fallouts, if you will, and agents, so a 2026 is going to be a very eventful year, a lot of these false prophets, right, are going to be exposed, for the lies and hypocrisy that they teach, right, and one major lie, one major, BS, right, that they ultimately teach is, that the MO to the TB, right, is anything other than the RFID micro C-HIP, which has been proven time and time again that a great millstone, starting with our elder apostles on down, right, we have the truth, right, we have the proper understanding, of, that prophecy, right, the prophecy of Revelations 13, verse 16 on down, right, what is going to be made mandatory, what are you going to have in order to be able to participate in society. And it's not, so-called white women, right? It's not so-called, the picture of Caesar Borgia, right? It's not sin, right? We know it to be the RFID microchip, man, right? Which they're already putting and have been putting for over a decade now, have been putting, and promoting, receiving the RFID microchips in your body, right? You got Elon Musk, right? He's already going around to these different hospitals, mainly on the East Coast and the South, like in Florida and whatnot, has already basically, partnered up with these different, hospitals and doctors and, and are putting these, these C-HIPs into people's heads, and he, he's doing those, so-called miracles that we read in Revelations 13, verse 14. And they've been having chipping parties, and different companies within the United States have ultimately been, offering, getting a C-HIP in your hand, to be able to badge in, badge out, so on and so forth, so it's already been happening, right? So, and it's already been proven time and time again, right, what the RFID micro C-HIP is. But hey, we're like a broken record, man. Right here at Great Millstone, starting with the elder apostles on down, we're like a broken record. We're going to continue, to preach the truth, preach the gospel, right, and to give out that warning, And again, we are in the time where the RFID microchip is going to be made mandatory, man. And that's going to put a lot of people, in a very bad spot, But I got a few articles, I want to get into, but I want to jump into this right here. This is Habakkuk 2:1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower and will watch to see what he will say unto me and what I shall answer when I am reproved, right? And we're supposed to be watching, right? We're supposed to be on our, on our guard, right? On our post, right? Watching, right? Looking, right? As it says in 2 Esdras 9 and verse 1, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And how do we do that, right? We look at these different, bills, policies, right? Different legislation that's being introduced and or passed, right? The different events that take place, right? Upwards of the people, earthquakes, so on and so forth, right? We look at everything, right? The scriptures say, be not ignorant of matters small or great, right? So we look at everything, right? We're watching everything, right? And we filter those things through the Bible, through the scriptures, right? The words of Yahweh Shem El Shai, and it gives us, right, the understanding of the times that we're in, And again, right, we're in the time where Revelations 13, verse 16 on down, really 14 on down, really the whole chapter, is coming to pass, right? Right before our eyes, man. Verse 2, it says, and Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it. Right? And we're making it simple, right? Easy for you to understand. Right? The prophets do all the hard work, They go and do the watching and the searching and looking up articles and, looking up the different symbolism and this, that, and the third, and ultimately give you the proper understanding, of that precept, of those scriptures, of the Bible, right? Of the different prophecies that are coming to pass, right? That are unfolding, so that you can understand it and to properly, be prepared, Verse 3, here's the point. It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And it's speaking loud and clear, right? All the different prophecies, again, right? World War III, right? Which, again, we're seeing that happen heavily, man. You got the tension between America with Israel and Iran, America and Israel, basically coming up against Iran, right? We got, tensions between America and Venezuela, right? World War III is right around the corner, but we understand before World War III can ultimately pop off, we understand that Jacob's trouble, right? The peak of Jacob's trouble, right, has to take place, which that is the mandatory implementation of the RFID microchip, and it's speaking loud and clear, right? So I want to jump into these articles right here. And the first one I got is on thepeoplesvoice.tv. As you see, it says Apple's darkest project yet, collaborating with the WEF to read your brain and control behavior, right? Because ultimately that's what it's all about, right? Is Esau Edom wants to be able to set himself up as the Most High and be able to have control over, the people, right? On the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and grab this real quick, right? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, it's like in verse 4 being the point. It says, who opposeth and exalteth. Matter of fact, we'll start at verse 3. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, which already happened, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Esau is being revealed, right? Because Esau Edom, right, who today would be called, the so-called white folks, right? He is being revealed at an all-time high, especially the chief duke of Esau Edom, which is the Amalekites. The Amalekites, the small hats, the tiny tops, right? All being revealed at an all-time high in this present moment. Especially what? Their agenda and what they have planned, right, for the very near future. As it says in 2 Corinthians 2 and 11, right? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. Right? When you go back to that word devices, it goes back to, plots and schemes and whatnot, man. We see right through his agenda, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem El Shai. We know what's coming and we're revealing it, right? Blowing the trumpet on it, giving you people the warning of what Esau's about to do, right? And again, he's trying to set himself up as the Most High. As we read verse 4, it says, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God. And this man is fucking proud. Right? He is a proud fucking devil, man. Right? You're a mere fucking human, and you believe that you can, ultimately make yourself equal to the one that created you. You're trying to make yourself equal to, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and his only beloved begotten Son. Well, matter of fact, they're trying to get rid of the Heavenly Father and His only beloved begotten Son, right? Because, you had Noah Yuval Harari ultimately make the statement, who's part of the WEF, and you can go look this up, right? He ultimately made the statement that God is dead already. We're just trying to hide the body, right? That's a fucking proud ass fucking statement that these damn devils, are saying, right? Because it wasn't just him. You had Klaus Schwab, right before him, making egregious statements, man, about the Most High and whatnot. These devils got to go. But then again, it shows you their pride, right? It says, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So again, the point being, he's trying to set himself up as the Most High, but he's trying to do it right on the left-hand side, right? The Heavenly Father, as scriptures say, that man's goings are of the Lord, right? How then can a man understand his way? And Esau wants to be able to have that same ability. He wants to be able to control everyone's, as we read, right? Control behavior. Read your brain and control behavior. That word control is major, because that's what he wants. And Esau has put this in many different movies, man. Many different movies, I can't remember what the name of that movie, man. It has to do with the female from Harry Potter, right? Her name in Harry Potter was Hermione Granger. Well, I can't remember her name, but she was in a movie with Tom Hanks. And basically what it was is about this digital, device that she had to wear, or that everyone was taking and whatnot. It allowed them to record everything about their life. Let me look it up real quick, man. Yeah, right here. Her name is Emma Watson. But it's called The Circle, right? I would inquire y'all to go and watch this movie. It's called The Circle, right? And it basically is, about, let's read it real quick, man. It says, Emma Watson sees the opportunity of a lifetime when she lands a job with the world's most powerful technology and social media company, right? It says, encouraging the company's founder, Tom Hanks, May joins a groundbreaking experiment that pushes the boundaries of privacy, ethics, and personal freedom. Her participation in the experiment and every decision she makes soon starts to affect the lives and futures of her friends, family, and that of humanity. But nonetheless, right, she's basically promoting, right, taking that CHIP, right, and what it does is allows for them to be able to track, trace, control everything that you do. That's a very spiritual movie. Go and watch the movie The Circle, right? But nonetheless, this is ultimately what Esau is trying to do. All right, let's go back. No, that's not the one. We're going to grab this one too, because this is heavy, but I want to read a little bit more. It says, Apple has quietly filed a disturbing patent that aligns with long-standing WEF ambitions around neurotechnology, behavioral influence, and cognitive control, right? It says the patent US 202 30 22 56 59 A1 describes consumer earbuds capable of monitoring and recording human brain activity. This is not speculation. It's in Apple's own language, right? And I had that pulled up. You had seen it. I looked it up, right? Patents.google.com. And when you look at it, right, that's the same patent. And it tells you, right, it says a abstract, a wearable electronic device includes a housing and an electrode carrier attached to the housing and having a non-planar surface, blah, 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 blah. You can read that, pause the screen, read it. But it drops down, right? When you go down to the bottom, it goes into description, right? It gives you basically a detailed description of what it is, right? And you go down to 0002, it says embodiment described herein generally related to a wearable electronic device for measuring biological signal parameters from a user, right? It says background, brain activity can be monitored using electrodes placed on the scalp of a user. The electrodes may in some cases be placed inside or around the outer ear of the user, right? Earbuds, right? It says measuring of the brain activity using electrodes placed in or around the outer ear may be preferred due to benefits such as reduced device mobility, and decreased visibility of the electrodes when compared to other devices that require electrodes to be placed on visible areas around the scalp of the user. So they want this to be hidden, right? They want to be able to do this hidden, right? See, Esau's a fucking sly devil, man. In with Psalms 64 chapter, it said, hide me from the secret counsels of the wicked. They be going into these different, G summits and WEF, gatherings and whatnot, right? Everything that you see the WEF right now, what they push and whatnot, right? Ultimately, is what they're willing to tell you. But even then, they speak in code and stuff like that, and you got to be able to dissect and know what they're talking about. But the real gatherings and real meetings and whatnot, they're not putting that shit on social media or any kind of public viewing, right? They're not doing that, man. All of this, and when you go back, right, it says right here 2023. This was all patented in 2023, right? And right now, what are they doing? It's a huge data grab right now, man. Right? They're basically removing and or adding laws that allow them to be able to gather personal data. Right? So ultimately, they put in the patent. Okay, cool. Now they got rid of the laws that prevent them from getting data and added in laws and brought in. Hold on. It's like Jake needed had a question real quick, but nonetheless, right? They're not going to, they're not going to put it out in the open, man. They're doing everything behind the scenes, But let's go back, right? We read that a little bit, right? I wanted to ultimately just get that one point out of there, what they have within that patent, right? So let's go back, right? It says the patent outlines a biosignal sensing device that uses electrodes placed inside and around the human ear to measure neurological signals, right? So again, right, they done removed all the laws that prevent them from gathering data, or they're in the process of doing that, and then they're adding laws that allows them to gather data and use that data, right? Hence all these data centers going up. Like, you got to put 2 and 2 together. It's not fucking rocket science, right? This is why the Lord said, make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it. We're literally pointing out the obvious because everything is happening in front of everyone's face. But see, again, a lot of these people, they don't want to hear none of that, right? They don't want to take heed to what's going on. They don't want to hear the truth, because what it does is it basically tears down their whole fantasy that they've built, right? It tears down the whole, this shit really is happening, and now they're all depressed, and now they're stressed. They want to stay in that mirth spirit, man. So they're not gonna take heed to what's being said, because it destroys all that. This is happening right now, right? It says, unlike traditional brain monitoring equipment, this approach is invisible, wearable, and designed for continuous use. And they can continue to get those brain waves, and it's going to continue to send that information and all that data back to them to where they can monitor it, right? It says the ear is chosen specifically because it offers stability, reduced visibility, and long-term compliance. In other words, the user doesn't notice and doesn't stop wearing it. People are always wearing their earbuds, man. Always wearing their earbuds. When I go to work, I work in construction. Everybody's got at least one in, at all times, and this is just how it is, man. Right? It says at the center of the filing is ear electroencephalography, Slovakia, man, right? Or ear EEG, right? This is a technology traditionally confined to medical and military research. Apple explicitly states that accurate brain activity measurement can be achieved through ear-based EEG devices. This means consumer electronics are now being engineered to perform direct brainwave monitoring. This matters because the World Economic Forum has openly discussed EEG, brain-computer interface, and neural data extractions as pillars of what it calls the fourth industrial revolution. And this is happening, right? And this, see the picture of Klaus Schwab right there, who ultimately left, right, the face of, the WEF, but nonetheless, he's still operating in the background. Right now, it's Noah Yuval Harari who's the head, but, nonetheless, right, they all work together, right? They all have the same goal, right? They ultimately work for the elites, nonetheless, right? They're ultimately, we would call like sub-elites, right? Lower elites, But this is all happening right now, man, right? And this is the same guy, as you see on the screen, this is the same guy that ultimately made the statement right before his departure, he made the statement that China is to be, the example that the rest of the world is to follow. And when you go into, China's, technological advances when it comes to, monitoring and surveillance, right? They survey you crossing the street. And if you cross the street late 1 or 2 seconds, they put your face up on there, put all your information, so on and so forth. So you could be openly shamed, in the classes, right? Kids wear these bands, right? And not every class and not every school does this, right? But certain schools, right, have ultimately put bands on kids' heads, and it has a 2-light system, right? A green light or a red light. Red light if you're not paying attention, right? If you're not mentally focused. A green light if you're mentally focused. So, they're already monitoring brain activity, right? They're already monitoring, your brain waves and so on and so forth. This is ultimately just the next step, which is a step prior to, right, having that device within your body or in your head, right, where they can control all those things, man. It says WEF materials frame the human brain as a data source and cognitive activity as something that can be monitored, optimized, and governed, right? And when you go into the word, govern, right, it means to control, right? Let's see if we can look that word up real quick, right? It's online etymology, govern, right? To rule with authority, right? To steer, be at the helm of, to rule, command, direct, right? So there you go. To steer, to pilot, right? They want to be able to have control over what you think, right? What you're thinking of, and so on and so forth, right? It says patents read less like innovation and more like implementation, right? And again, we're in the time where they're going to make this mandatory, right? They're going to make it required, right? To have, the C-hip. Again, the earbuds is a step prior to that, a step prior to that, right? Which leads me to my next article, which brothers have been doing, going in on it, This is on the whitehouse.gov. This is the White House's information, right? Their page, that they put it up on the page. Now listen to what is being talked about, right? This is winning the 6G race, and how convenient, right? When you go into Revelations, right? Revelations 13, all right, in verse 18, it says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, right? For it is the number of a man, and his number is 600, 60, which is 60, and 6, right? 666. So here you go, right? It's got that vibration all over it. And this says what? December 19th, 2025. So literally a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, right? That this was ultimately, put on here. And then it says what? Winning the 6G race. Section, purpose, right? Section 1, purpose. It says, now listen to this, right? The next generation of mobile communication networks, 6G, right? There goes that 6 again, will be foundational to the national security, foreign policy, and economic prosperity of the United States. This technology will play a pivotal role in the development and adoption of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, and listen, implantable technologies, right? So it's all laid out right in front of y'all. But this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get under your skin. They want to be in your body. They want to have control of every single thing that you do. Hence 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 4, wanting to be the most high, right? Again, they put it in movies, right? One of my I've been mentioning this time and time again. You can go back and watch it. I might even go back and watch it myself, but I think it's Fast 5 or Fast 6. Well, you can look it up on YouTube or something. It'll give you the right movie, right? You can go watch the movie, but it talk about the God's eye, right? And how convenient it's called God's eye. Esau wanted to be like the Most High, where they're able to literally tap into any camera, microphone, speaker. It don't matter what it is, right? They can turn a speaker into a microphone, right? And Esau has this ability today. You can look it up. They have the Palantir, surveillance system, right? They have the Gideon surveillance system. They have all these different surveillance systems and whatnot, and that they're able to, got NVIDIA and Apple and and all the Google and so on and so forth, all these different, platforms and devices and so on and so forth, they're able to tap into, man. So they could be literally listening, which I highly doubt that they're not, right? I believe that they're listening even in on this video, that's being made currently, Esau's got his ears and eyes everywhere with this technology, man, right? But again, he's trying to be like the Most High, but on the left-hand side, right? It says, 6G will also provide faster, more resilient, and more secure communication networks that can be utilized for national security and public safety purposes. And see, this is how Esau's ultimately going to, push it out there, right? He's going to sit there and tell you, oh, it makes your life more convenient. It makes life easier, right? You having these devices will make it to where you don't have to have all the multitude of paperwork and other devices and so on and so forth, right? Like you have an RFID, C-hip in your phone, your smartwatches, your smart rings, whatever, your smart glasses, right? You got RFID C-hips in those, but see, you can leave those, and they can get stolen, right? You can leave them different places. You can misplace it. They can get it stolen from you, and that's how he's going to ultimately say, hey, this is not going to get stolen. This is not going to get, this is something that's personal to you, right? So on and so forth, And that's how he's going to get a lot of you people, man. It's just by that convenience, right? Let's see, bribe. It's in Psalms 26 and verse 10. It says, in whose hand, I'll start at verse 9. It says, gather not my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloody men. And that's Esau Edom, right? He is that bloody man. Scripture saying Habakkuk, right? His soul, which is in him, is not upright in him, right? He's the fucking wicked, right? Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white folks, right? They are the wicked that the Bible speaks of, man. Job 9 and 24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Who rules, right? That's a simple question. You have to be honest with. Who is in charge? What nation of people is in charge of every fucking thing? It's the so-called white folks, man. They're in charge of everything, man. That's who we go as the part of the curses. Deuteronomy 28th chapter, right? You should go to your enemy and want of all things. Who do we go to and want of all things? Who owns the stores, right? You might have Jake in there. It might be like, oh, I'm the manager, this and the third. Okay, no. Who owns the store? Who hired him? Come on now. Like, you got to go a little bit deeper than that, right? We would go to our enemies, even though Jake, he might make Jake the face of it or whatnot as far as managers, but you go to Esau for everything, Even then, right, it tells you in Malachi 1 and 4 that he's called what? The border of wickedness. Esau, Edom, right? The self-proclaimed so-called white folks, right? They are the border of wickedness, man. They're evil, man. They're the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. They're the bloody man, as we're reading, right? Verse 10 says, in whose hand is mischief, right? And their right hand is full of bribes. And we saw that, right? Going back to the scamdemic. Right? In, 2020, 2021, so on and so forth. What were they doing? Joints for jabs, right? Free food for, so long, a month or whatever, if you take the jab, or you get a free Powerball ticket if you take the jab, this is what they were doing. Right? And then again, it wasn't just there, right? We were talking about money and so they were offering $100, $150, right? To take the JAB, the jab. That's bribery. And see, this is how he's going to do it now, right? That was just a test run, for what we're about to see on a much larger scale, the C-19 and that whole, that was a test run. Now what's coming is going to be a hell of a lot worse, right? Esau is going to, again, this system, Esau has to crash this so-called old system, the old way of doing things, right? The current currency, right? The dollar, he's crashing the dollar, constantly printing more money. More nations are moving away from, physical currencies and going into digital currencies and so on and so forth, which makes the physical currency of no value, which means prices for everything goes up. So really, he's ultimately putting you people in a position to where you have to take it, right? Which is according to prophecy, right? Revelations chapter 13 and verse 16, right? It says, and matter of fact, I want to read it in the NLT. I have it right here in the NLT. Revelations 13 and verse 16, the NLT, it says, he required everyone He required, man. He's going to require you. He's going to put you in a position to where you're going to have to take it, right? By jobs being lost at an all-time high, by the value of the dollar going up, therefore making the prices for everything going up, you know, because the value of bread ultimately stays the same. It's bread, right? But if the value of the dollar goes down, that makes the price of that bread go up, right? The value of everything didn't change, right? It's just the value of the currency that you're using to pay with it is what changes, which makes the price for whatever you're buying go up or down. You know, when your currency is strong, the prices for everything goes down. When the currency is weak, the price for everything goes up. And see, the dollar is becoming weaker and weaker, and which again is putting people in a more, you know, a tighter situation, right? Jobs are being massive, hundreds of thousands of jobs per month are being lost. You know, I think it was over a million jobs since the start of 2025 has been lost. It could very well could be more than that, right? That's just what they were saying. It could be a hell of a lot more than that. They said in October, over 100,000 jobs just in October were lost. Companies going out of business, companies doing, you know, reducing work and replacing people with AI, right? That's putting you a lot of people in the position to need money. They're going to need, you know, stability, right? And then they're coming out with what? These you know, UBIs, right? Universal basic income trials and so on and so forth, which they're ultimately going to pair with this device, you know? And again, they're going to say, hey, if you want it, you know, we got a way out, right? Esau has a thing called order ab chaos, right? Order out of chaos, right? So he ultimately, what he does is he causes the chaos, right? Then he tries to establish, right, some type of order, right? Using a solution to that problem, which is, in this case, it would be what? The RFID microchip, you know? Hey, if you know, it's got all your information. Not only is it going to, you know, sit there and tell you, oh, it's more convenient, it's faster, it's attached to the 6G, which is faster than the 5G. You know, 5G is outdated. You know, that grid was compromised, so on and so forth, right? This is a whole lot different. Not only that, well, we're going to give you free money. You know, we're going to give you free money in order for you to take it, right? And that's how this damn devil operates, right? So this is how he's going to require you to take it, right? It says he required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. And it's in, right? In, right? Because this is something that's going to be implanted in you, right? We just went in on whitehouse.gov, right? It says what, right? Implantable devices, right? Implantable technology. So this is something that's going to be put inside you, right? When you go into that word, M-A-R-K, the word mark, right? Strong's G5480, right? Charagma, right? It says what? Thing carved, right? Sculpted, graven work, right? It's something that's going to be, you know, again, and then what? Right here, stamp it. Imprinted mark, right? Something that's going to be in something. It's going to be put in you, you know? And it's going to be used, right? It's going to be put into you by these different, you know, needles and whatnot that they're going to be injecting into you, you know, like they do at barbershops, which some of these tattoo shops, tattoo parlors. Some of these tattoo parlors even do them, right? Even here in America, you got some tattoo parlors that are already doing it. They're already handing out the RFID microchips, man, you know, which goes back to what what is that? The root word, right, of charagma is what? Charax, right? Which was a pale or stake or a palisade, right? A palisade or a rampart. Something that's going to be used, right, as like a needle, right, to inject that device into you, right? And all your information is going to be on that device, right? Hence the second root word, meaning what? Grapho, right? It says to write with reference to the form of the letters. Drop it down. It says to write to one, i.e. by writing in a written epistle to give information, data, right, and directions, right? So it's going to have all your information. Hence the data grab, right? Hence, you know, them trying to, you know, read your brain waves and collect that data, you know, and store that data so that way they can, and because when you go back to this article, it tells you right here, Where'd it go? Yeah, it says the earbuds described in the patent do not only monitor brainwaves, they are capable of capturing multiple biosignals simultaneously, creating a real-time neurological and psychological profile of the user. So they want to be able to have that information on you, right? It says this kind of data is not required for music, calls, or convenience. It is required for behavioral modeling, emotional analysis, and predictive control. So there you go. Right? This is what they want. They want to be able to collect that data, and all your data, everything about you is going to be on that device, right? Because it's going to be personalized, right? Is what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you, oh, this is specifically your device, right? Any and all information for you is going to be on your health records, right? Hence the United Healthcare, right? Headed by Kennedy, right, is ultimately pushing for, data to be shared between, these different devices, your smartwatch, your smart glasses, your O-rings, and so on and so forth, right? He wants that to be traded, right, and openly traded, and data to be openly, gathered, so that way when you go to the hospital, your doctor has to do is basically scan, whatever it is, or send you a link to approve your approved for data to be shared, and then all of a sudden they got all your data. This is all happening right now. This is all according to prophecy, man. And again, starting with the elder apostles, a great millstone, right? We've been telling y'all this for years. And now it's speaking loud and clear. We're here. Right? Everything is adding up. 2 and 2 is equaling 4 at this point, man. The math is mathing. We're in these times, man. It's such beautiful times to be in the truth. It's such beautiful times, to be, in the know, through the spirit and power, Yahweh Shem Shah, the water Yahweh Shem Shah, man. But let's go back. We'll finish this off, right? Because it tells you, right, this is ultimately what they're going to try to do. And then you're not going to be able to participate in society if you don't have it, right? Revelation 13 and verse 17, it says, and no one could buy or sell anything without that mark. You're not going to be able to buy or sell anything, man. And this is the way things are going, right? You have the UK, even Mexico, basically stating that in order for you to be able to participate in the near future, you're going to have a digital ID. That's all a part of the steps leading up to the mandatory implementation. People act like, no, that's just something different. No, it's all a part of it, because everything's digital, right? Data is digital, right? The way that they're collecting everything is digitally. They're not collecting everything on paper and writing shit down and, putting something on your heart to check your heartbeat. They're not doing none of that shit no more, man. You can get your heart rate, right? Your beats, your oxygen, so on and so forth on your fucking smartwatch. You don't need to go to the doctors to have them put that, stethoscope on your chest or anything like that, man. You don't need none of that shit no more. Now they're hearing your heart, but for the most part, you don't need to do anything. Everything's data now. Everything's over, it's wirelessly, So we're coming into a very digital and very, controlled future, and this is the agenda, right? This is according to prophecy as we're reading, right? We in some very beautiful times through the spirit, man, but I want to go ahead and close out, with Revelations, the 14th chapter, because again, as we see this prophecy unfolding, right? And we're giving you that warning, if this is what this devil's trying to do, we're also warning you that if you do take it, you will be put to death by Yahweh Shem Shai. That you should not, doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter, what kind of bribery Esau tells you. It doesn't matter if you're not able to pay for, your bills or your car, shit starts getting taken, because that's what's going to happen, right? Esau is going to ultimately shut down this system, and or ultimately take things away from people, and put them in the position where they're going to need that charagma, in order to go to work, in order to to have a job, in order to live somewhere, in order to be able to get food. You're going to have that charagma, right? No matter the circumstance that you're in, don't take it. Scriptures say that, matter of fact, let's grab that before we grab this. This is Jeremiah chapter 17. I'll start at verse 5. It says, thus saith Yahweh, right? This is the Lord Yahweh, the Heavenly Father Yahweh, right? Through his only beloved begotten Son speaking, right? Thus saith Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, right? You can't trust this damn devil, man. Sirach 12:10, never trust thine enemy, no matter what. That means never. Never means never. It's not some code fucking word, that you can try to, get your own interpretation of. First and foremost, the scriptures say there's no private interpretation of the scriptures, right? That's thus saith Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. So, and when it says never, it means fucking never. Not at all, not at any time. Never trust thine enemy. And you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right, as well as you Israelite foreigners, your enemy is your number one enemy, right? Because we have many enemies, right? But your number one enemy is Esau Edom. Today would be the self-proclaimed so-called white folks. And it's not about skin color, right? Just majority of the Edomites are so-called white, right? You do have chocolate-covered Edomites. Edomites that look so-called black, but yet their lineage goes back to the Esau Edom, right? Those tares, but that's for, another lesson. But nonetheless, right, it's about, who you are as a nation, right? You Israelites, your number one enemy is the Edomites, right? As well as the other nations, but our number one enemy is the Edomites, We're not to trust that damn devil, man. There's not been one time in fucking history where this damn devil has sat there and did something so-called nice, for us, and it wasn't backhanded. There wasn't no ulterior motive. There's not one time in history, You fucking simple ass, stupid ass fucking jakes, man. Y'all want to sit here and goddamn believe this damn devil when he ain't did shit for you and never will. He gave you the illusion of freedom, right, by giving you all this fast food, and which is bad as fuck for you, right? And said, here, you can choose whatever you want. It's all bad for you. He gave you the worst options, And you think that's freedom. That's freedom. No, it's the illusion of freedom. We're still fucking slaves, man. It just went from physical slaves to now we're debt slaves, right? We're always in debt, right? Spiritual slaves, right? Our people are given over to, Christianity, Catholicism, Muslim, so on and so forth. Our people are bugged out following the ways of these damn heathens, man. So you're not to trust this damn devil, right? It says, thus saith Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. Dropping down, verse 7. Blessed is the man that trusteth in Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, and whose hope Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai is. So we got to trust in the Lord, man, right? Not these damn devils, man. So let me grab this and we'll close out. This is Revelations chapter 14 and verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, right, the charagma, right, the RFID microchip, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. Indignation meaning righteous anger, because he's sending out his prophets, warning you, telling you not to take it, and you still gonna fucking take it. Therefore, you finna eat of that. You finna eat a damn missile, man. You finna get judgment straight up, no mixture, straight up, right? And then he shall torment with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. You take that charagma, you take the RFID microchip, you're fucking done, man. You're fucking done, and that's the bottom line, right? There is no repenting, from taking it. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say that you can repent from taking this charagma, right? You ultimately take the charagma. It doesn't matter the circumstance you're in, right? You got to trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. It doesn't matter the circumstance you're in. You take it, you're fucking dead. You will be destroyed, and that's the bottom line, But that's all I got, man. Lord will is edifying. Lord will is straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechak Wadash, double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Until next time, I say shalom.